Hello, you are welcome once again to my Elements of Microeconomics class. In our last video, we ended with the reason why economics is regarded as a science. And we learned that economics is basically a science because economists employ scientific methods in their analysis. This time around, we want to look at how we call the economic way of thinking. Now, first, what we have to know is that economists use scientific tools such as mathematics and then statistics. That's what economists normally do. So economists don't just come up with theories. They collect data, they analyze in order to make what? Predictions. That is what scientists do as well. Now, economists also believe in what we call the assumption of rationality. The assumption of rationality. If you are rational, what it means is that given two options, you always go in for the better one. Given two options, you always go in for the better one. So you have to always ask yourself, option A and option B, which one will give me a higher satisfaction? So if A gives you a higher satisfaction than B, and you choose A, that means you are rational. And then, if you know very well that A will give you a lower satisfaction, you go in for it, that means you are irrational. And that is the assumption of rationality. And then economists also do what we call cost-benefit analysis. You realize that when it comes to the concept of opportunity cost, anytime you make a decision to, let me say, do a particular thing, several decisions are made to forgo others. So as you are choosing one, at the same time, you are also foregoing others. Opportunity cost. So economists will always compare what you are losing with what you are going to gain. So assuming, let's say you are learning, somebody comes, can you please escort me to circle? Should you go or not? Economists will say, you must do cost-benefit analysis. What am I going to gain? What am I going to lose? So you must always do cost-benefit analysis before we act. And that is how economists always think. Then economists also believe in what we call marginal analysis. Marginal. The word marginal simply means additional. So for every additional, let me say, decision or whatever, anything you do, any extra thing you do, the extra thing that you are doing, how is it going to affect you? It's just like the concept of cost-benefit analysis. By the marginal analysis, we are looking at the extra satisfaction. It's like we are comparing the extra cost and then the extra what? Benefit. So if the thing, you realize that the extra satisfaction is reducing and the extra cost is rather increasing, should you go ahead? Then you must try and then think twice. So that is what we call marginal analysis. Now economists distinguish between microeconomics and then macroeconomics. Talking about micro, as the name suggests, it deals with the behavior of the individual economic units, or the behavior of individual firms, individual households, and what have you. For instance, you may study why an individual household prefer commodity A to commodity B. Study of individual behavior of economic units. Now, talking about macro deals with holistic study of the economy, and basically it's about the behavior of the economic aggregates. So in macroeconomics, we don't talk about price of a single commodity. We talk about price of all goods and services. Mostly, macroeconomic issues affect the entire economy or affect everyone in the economy. So issues of unemployment, issues of national income, gross domestic product, what have you. These are issues that affect everyone, that are holistic in nature. And for that matter, we say they are macroeconomic issues. So in short, microeconomic issues affect only parts, a segment of the economy, but then macroeconomic units affect everyone, or macroeconomic issues affect everyone or the entire nation. Now, we also distinguish between positive economics and normative economics. Positive economics is based on facts, is based on theory. And anything factual is something backed by evidence, something that can be proven to be true or false. That is positive economics. It's based on theories. So in positive economics, we normally make analysis based on what? Theory. And it deals with statements like what is, what was, and what will be. But the normative economics is about value judgments. So when we are making normative analysis, in normative economics, normally it's about opinions, I think, and so on. Like for example, somebody will say, oh, it's not fair that this particular group of workers, like say footballers, should be paid more than the others. This is a normative statement. It's a normative. It's not based on theory. It's about what you think. And that's normative analysis. But if you are making analysis based on theory that due to this and this and that, this should be done, then that is a positive statement. So, for instance, somebody will say that doctors are paid more than teachers. This is a positive statement because you can prove it to be true or false. Like you say, doctors should be paid. That one is a suggestion. So it becomes a what? A normative statement. Now, when we talk about what we call the PPF, Production Possibility Frontier. The Production Possibility Frontier. This is basically a diagram used to explain the concept of scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. And what is the PPF? It is just a diagram showing the maximum combinations of two commodities that an economy can produce when all the resources it has are fully utilized. So as a nation, using all our resources, what's the maximum amount of two commodities that we can produce? Now, when we do that and we illustrate it on a graph, and that graph is called Production Possibility Frontier. You know, frontier, like a border, the limit that you can what? You can reach. Now, without much ado, let's assume that an economy is just producing two commodities, so food and clothing. With this, let's assume that when we use all our resources, in the case of food, the maximum we can produce is 10. That is 10 tons of food. If you are producing 10 tons of food, then it means you cannot produce any amount of clothing. Now let's assume that when it comes to clothing, the maximum amount we can produce is what? 30 bales of clothing. That means we cannot produce any amount of what? Clothing. On the other hand, by producing 2 tons of food, we can produce 28 bales of clothing. By producing 4 tons of food, we can produce 24, and so on. Now, when we illustrate this information on a graph, that is what we call the Production Possibility Frontier. And we use this to analyze the concept of opportunity cost. So for instance, by producing 2 tons of food, we can produce 28 bales of clothing. So how many bales of clothing have we sacrificed? 2. So it means that opportunity cost of producing 2 tons of food is 2 bales of clothing. On the other hand, by producing 4 tons of food, we can produce only 24 and not all the 30. So that means we have sacrificed 6 bales of clothing. So the 6 bales of clothing becomes the opportunity cost of producing the 4 tons of food. On the other hand, by producing 10 bales of clothing, we can produce what? 8 tons of food and not all the 10. So how many tons of food have we sacrificed not to produce the 10 bales of clothing? 2. So it means opportunity cost of producing 10 bales of clothing is what? 2 tons of food. Now, what we have to know is that all the points on the PPF, points A, B, C, and D, they are called points of efficiency. Points of efficiency, meaning that the resources are being put into efficient uses. No resource is lying idle, and that indicates efficiency. If a point is inside the PPF, inside, that indicates inefficiency, because we could have produced more, but we are producing less. On the other hand, if a point is outside the PPF, that point is unattainable in the current period. But however, in the future, it can be possible to do what? To attain it. Now, as you can see, points outside the PPF are unattainable in the current period. But then, if points are inside, they indicate an inefficient use or underutilization of resources. And then the points on the PPF indicate an efficient or full utilization of resources. It is important to indicate that society's production possibility curve is bowed outwards, reflecting the law of increasing cost. The law of increasing cost. This means that in life, you cannot have more of everything. As you are getting more of something, it means you are getting what? Less of the other. And that is the law of increasing cost. Opportunity cost continues to increase as you continue to do something else. As you are increasing, let me say, production of A, then it means that each opportunity cost will be increasing. So as you are getting more of this, then definitely you'll be getting less of the other. All right. So, what happens for the PPF to move? That is when we achieve what we call economic growth. We are saying points outside the PPF are unattainable in the current period. But in the future period, it's possible. And now it's possible when we have attained economic growth. And how does economic growth occur? Economic growth occurs when we make new discoveries. We make new discoveries. Like for instance, Ghana some time ago were not producing oil. Because more or less we didn't know the oils were there. But somewhere around 2006, 2007, we discovered that, we had oil in commercial quantities. So when we made the discoveries, it increased our capacity to produce oil in commercial quantities. And that increased our economic growth to some extent. Yeah. And then also, the PPF can also shift outwards when resources that were not being used previously are now being used. And then also improvement in technology. When there is what? Improvement in technology. When we now discover better ways, modern ways of producing goods and services, then the PPF can now what?